Constitution protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
Good morning to our viewers at home. If you are just joining us, you are watching Parliament TV on DSTV Channel 408. Today marks the second day of the State of the Nation Address debate, where members of Parliament of both houses of Parliament will, of course, be unpacking the President's SONA and they will, of course, be delivering their speeches from the Cape Town City Hall, which is what you are looking at now. Thembi Nkosi?
Yes, we're at the beautiful City Hall, which is located in the center of Cape Town, and that is where Nelson Mandela made his first public appearance after he was released from prison.
As you see on the screens, you can see the statue of our former late President, Mr. Mandela, and also we have the clock. Coming back to you, viewers at home, it's a good afternoon to you and welcome to Parliament TV, DSTV Channel 408. We are coming to you live from the Cape Town City Hall, from where we will be bringing you a resumption of the debates of the State of the Nation Address. We started with the debates yesterday, where different political parties gave their views on the state president's address that was delivered on the 10th of February 2022, right where we are in the City Hall.
Indeed, Valerie. After the address by the President, the National Assembly, together with the National Council of Provinces, debated the State of the Nation Address yesterday. And we also know that after the debates, the two-day debates, the first leg of it was yesterday, and today is the second leg of the debate. The President will be able to give his reply on Wednesday. Well, indeed, we know that a lot of perspectives have been shared as we stay tuned to hear what the President is going to say on Wednesday.
Good afternoon and welcome to Parliament TV on DSTV Channel 408. We are continuing to bring you an informative program right here on Parliament TV. So stay with us from now until 2 o'clock, where we'll be bringing you live the day 2 of the debates. Don't forget to follow us and join the conversation on our social media platforms at Parliament of RSA. Let's continue to wash our hands, wear our masks, sanitize, social distance, as the COVID-19 pandemic is not yet over. Please stay tuned.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of Parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation Address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation Address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation Address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
We have given ourselves 100 days to finalize what I call a comprehensive social compact to grow our economy, to create jobs, and to combat hunger. This work will build on the foundation of the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which we adopted, which remains our common program to rebuild the economy. We remain focused on the priorities we identified in the State of the Nation last year. They being overcoming the COVID-19 pandemic, a massive rollout of infrastructure, a substantial increase in local production, and employment stimulus to create jobs and support livelihoods, and the rapid expansion of our energy generation capacity. To be effective, this social compact needs to include every South African and every part of our society. In the end, we must all be imbued with the understanding that no one must be left behind.
South Africa, COVID-19 is still with us. South Africa and the world continue to experience infections and deaths, with many families losing their loved ones and in some instances, their livelihoods through this pandemic. While the government has opened various sectors of the economy to arrest the collapse of the economy and is rolling out the robust national vaccination program, the importance of remaining vigilant and never letting our guard down cannot be overemphasized. We must all remain steadfast in strictly observing all regulations and health protocols. Once the guard is lowered and we ignore these important life-saving protocols and regulations, our rate of infections will skyrocket, lives and livelihoods will be destroyed, and our socio-economic rebuilding and restoration program will suffer immensely. Let's work together, let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, let's work together, let's hold hands and unite even better than before against this invisible enemy. As united people of this nation, we have overcome most vicious and destructive adversaries before. Working together, we can overcome these too. Let's avoid huge gatherings where we can, wear our masks, wash hands all the time, and maintain social distancing. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
After 2 days of grilling debates by members of Parliament, President Cyril Ramaphosa will conclude the process of the debate on the State of the Nation address with his reply on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. Watch the reply by the President to the debate on the State of the Nation address live across Parliament's platforms on 16 February 2022 at 2 p.m. For more information on the State of the Nation address, visit our website at www.parliament.gov.za. Follow us on social media account at Parliament of RSA. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
This book, our Constitution, protects our society and empowers us to govern. The Protea leaves are us, the people, who freely elect our voices in Parliament. The drum calls the people of Parliament, through whom we govern together. And the sun is our country, healing our past, improving our lives, and energizing our potential. Together, our Constitution, our people, our Parliament, and our country are building our great South African nation. Parliament TV, Channel 408 on DSTV.
The first two phases of the Presidential Employment Stimulus Programs, which we launched in October of 2020, have supported over 850,000 opportunities. More than 80% of the participants in these opportunities were young people, and over 60% of the participants were women. Now, that is an important development. And we were able to do this within a short space of time. Once we were hit by COVID, we gathered our wits around and decided that we needed to give protection to our people and to expand employment opportunities. This program has also supported young women like Tracy Nkosi from Springs, who was employed as an education assistant in Welgedag Primary School, and who says this opportunity has motivated her to further her studies in the educational sphere. She was brought in when we brought in assistants into our schools at the height of COVID, and we brought hundreds of thousands of them, and Tracy is one of those. And once arriving at the school to do what she thought would be menial work, she immediately found that she could do more important work, and now she wants to advance her studies and become an educator. It has also supported Umama Unosipho Tekwana from Mpendle in KwaZulu-Natal, who used her farming input voucher, which was part of this program, to buy maize, to buy manure, and supplements for her livestock. The total number of direct beneficiaries will soon rise to over 1 million South Africans with regards to the plan that we now have. This includes over 500,000 young people appointed as education assistants, making it the largest youth employment program ever undertaken in our history. The employment stimulus will also enable the Department of Home Affairs to recruit 10,000 unemployed young people for the digitization of paper records in the department, enhancing their skills and contributing. They will also be contributing to the modernization of citizen services. Now, these are young people that currently are unemployed that we will bring in. We would like to bring in more, but our fiscal position does not enable us to do so. The Social Employment Fund will create a further 50,000 work opportunities using the capability of organizations beyond government in areas such as urban agriculture, early childhood development, public art, and tackling gender-based violence. In addition to expanding public employment, we are providing support to young people to prepare them for the work and link them to opportunities in industries. To encourage hiring by smaller businesses, we will be increasing the value and expanding the criteria for participation in the Employment Tax Initiative. Now, this tax initiative has proven to be one of the most successful programs that we have put in place to bring in young people into the world of work. And invariably, the majority of them always find permanent employment once they are brought in through this program. We want to expand this so that more young people are brought into the world of work. For several years, this has been an effective way to encourage companies to hire new work seekers. The changes to the incentive will make it easier for small businesses in particular to hire young people. The Minister of Finance will announce the details of these changes in the budget. We call on companies to support this effort, to take up the incentive and give young people a place in the world of work. The SA Youth.mobi platform for young work seekers to access opportunities and support has now risen to 2.3 million young South Africans who have registered. And of these, over 600,000 have been placed in employment opportunities. A revitalized National Youth Service will recruit its first cohort of 50,000 young people during this year, this next year, creating opportunities for young people to contribute to their communities, to develop skills, and to grow their own employability. The Department of Higher Education and Training will place 10,000 unemployed TVET graduates in workplaces from April of 2020. Now that is a big number, but we obviously would want more. In preparing this State of the Nation address, I was assisted by two young South Africans who are working as interns in the presidency, Ms. Naledi Malachi and Kiarebe Mabate. Now they told me about the pain that is felt by young people who find themselves with a qualification but are unemployed because of lack of experience. This forces many into jobs that have little or nothing to do with what they have studied. Now, all the measures I've outlined are essential to provide young people with the work experience that they need to take up their first step in the labor market. Now, we call on the private sector to support these measures and wherever possible to drop the requirement of experience so that we can give many young people a possible chance for their first job.
Welcome back. You're still watching Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408, and we're coming to you live from the Cape Town City Hall, where members of Parliament will be delivering their speeches this afternoon as they debate the President's State of the Nation address. As you have seen, that was the President during his State of the Nation address last week, Thursday, speaking quite passionately about the need to create jobs, particularly for the young people of the country. The National Development Agency has been established primarily to address challenges faced by the youth in the country and also to ensure that across all 9 provinces and at local government level that tangible opportunities are created for the young people. I have with me, joining me via Zoom platform, the newly appointed chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency, Ms. Asanda Luwata, who will be talking to us about how the National Youth Development Agency will be working together with government to ensure that young people's issues are addressed, particularly the issue of unemployment. Ms. Luwata, what an awesome privilege it is to have you here with us. And maybe let me just start by saying congratulations for first of all being the first female appointed to this position. Secondly, being the youngest as well. That is an awesome privilege, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on your show this afternoon.
Wonderful, wonderful. Just by way of starting our conversation, talk to us about your vision. You've just been appointed to this position a few weeks ago. What is going through your head, and what do you have in mind in terms of your vision for the NYDA, and also, importantly, what are the broad priorities that you have in mind for the NYDA for the current financial year, particularly given the current context?
Apologies, I'm just struggling with connectivity, but I think I managed to get the gist of your question. So in terms of the vision, you'd be aware that, the President did make his appointment for a 7th board member late last year. So when we commenced our duties as the board, one of the main issues was to really hit the ground running and just look at how can we, collectively look towards tackling the mammoth task that we have. So culminating all what has emanated from our discussions and our various strat sessions and meetings was really this vision and wanting to underscore this vision of creating an agency that is capable, that has capacity, that is inclusive, and that is able to be responsive to the plight of young people across the country. Now, you know that, unemployment rates are at an ultimate or all-time high, and it's young people who bear the brunt of these many socio-economic challenges. So as the agency and as the board, we really want to just, like I said, hit the ground running and really create an agency that is able to be a responsive machinery for youth development across the country.
Wonderful. So basically, you are coming into this position to ensure you speak about inclusivity, you talk about making sure that the NYDA becomes more responsive to the plight of young people. Let's talk specifically about the issue of unemployment, which we know currently that's an issue that has been highlighted as probably one of the key issues, challenges that young people are facing when it comes to also, if we think about inherited inequalities. Right now, young people are still the ones who are disproportionately impacted upon, particularly by the COVID-19 pandemic. So talk to us about how is the NYDA going to ensure that the President's commitments around youth economic empowerment and just youth employment in general, that finds expression, tangible expression?
Yeah. So you'd be aware that the President, in his State of the Nation address last year, made an announcement insofar as the NYDA, as well as the Department of Small Business Development, having a collaboration where we give support to 1,000 youth-owned enterprises in 100 days. We support the necessary funding for those 1,000 businesses. So that is one program where, as the NYDA currently, we are monitoring and we do want to, just track the progress thereof. But secondly, the President would have spoken at length about, the various interventions that speak to youth development. One is issues of, the reviewing of your Business Act, for instance. Now you'll know that in its current structure, the Business Act makes it basically difficult and costly for startups to enter into the workspace, so into the sector. So we do have a keen interest on, in fact, encouraging young people, particularly in that sector, to make their submissions for the review of the Business Act. But then also the President would have spoken at length about the issue of unemployed graduates, and that the Department of Higher Education and Training, as well as Home Affairs, will be embarking on recruiting 10,000 unemployed graduates in their respective sectors. Higher Education will look at employing your education assistants. Your Home Affairs will look at employing those young people into digitizing Home Affairs. But particularly on this issue of the COVID-19 pandemic, the NYDA has been able to secure or release your COVID relief fund for businesses that have been negatively affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly businesses that are youth-owned. So ours is really just to, one, track where commitments have been made, but then two, also where the President has particularly tasked ourselves, as an implementing agent. Ours is to really ensure that the announcements and the commitments that are made by the President find expression in terms of translating into tangible results.
So basically, you're saying you talk about tracking progress that has been made, and that is something, it's an issue that has been raised on various platforms, particularly the youth Parliament platforms, where young people have consistently indicated that they don't get enough feedback around progress that has been made. And if there are opportunities available, how well are those opportunities communicated across all 9 provinces? And then we must also remember there's also the district level, there's metros as well. So there's various spaces, spatial areas where information is actually young people are in dire need of information. But if we're talking about tracking progress that has been made, talk to us about what mechanisms you will be using to ensure that young people are kept informed about, one, the opportunities that are available, and two, when we talk about the commitments or the undertakings that have been made by the President, how far, the speed at which a government is moving in relation to implementing those commitments.
Yeah. So the issue of tracking some of the commitments is particularly important. Precisely because currently we are embarking on, crisscrossing the country and really engaging young people about, what have been their historic challenges insofar as accessing, the products and services of the NYDA are concerned. And one of the primary and main issues that come to the fore is this issue of an unresponsive NYDA, unresponsive agency. So we've declared 2022, the year of customer service at the NYDA. And what that ultimately means is that, one, we need to ensure that where we've got a footprint of the NYDA across the country, that we have a staff component or a youth development practitioners that are not just complicit or complacent rather, but they're able to really be and live, eat, breathe youth development. So we want to increase issues of customer service across all 44 of our centers across the country. But secondly, the issue of ensuring that we've got an agency that is accessible means that, one, we need to go beyond what currently exists. So we need to ensure that a young person that is in a rural area is able to access the NYDA. A young person that is in a township area is able to access the NYDA. And I think when we speak about access, then ideas of us wanting to really leverage on what the COVID-19 or these past couple of months has exposed us to is that the nature of work has changed, right? So where an accessibility spoke to a physical building, but that has, due to the restrictions insofar as COVID are concerned, that has limited us insofar as our operations. So we are looking at exploring what are the other avenues that we can ensure that we reach access or we are accessible to young people. And one such avenue is ensuring that, for one, some of our portals are zero rated. So wherever a young person has a smartphone, we've got our youth.mobi app, which is a zero-rated platform where young people can access opportunities and at a cost of zero. So they don't need to have data, they don't need to have airtime, they just need to have connectivity and they're able to access such opportunities. But two, also, this idea of ensuring that we are responsive. So when a young person picks up their phone and, they're able to tweet the NYDA, that, there is that quick and seamless response to the challenges, and that the issues are resolved. There's a quick turnaround time. We can't have a situation where a young person can tell us that they applied for grant funding 7 years ago, and 7 years later there's not even an acknowledgement of receipt, right? So it's just those basic fundamentals that we as the agency want to really tie up and ensure that the agency really does justice to the youth across the country.
Okay, so you're talking about establishing a footprint across an NYDA footprint across the country. Talk to us about how, in fact, there's also been an issue about accessibility of NYDA offices around the country and whether there's enough NYDA offices and whether young people even know where the nearest NYDA office is in a particular district or locality. Do you guys have any plans in place to ensure that you have offices that are accessible to particularly poor young people?
So currently, obviously due to the resource restrictions and limitations, the unfortunate reality is that we can't have an NYDA office across all 200 odd local and district municipalities. But what we are trying to do is really get to a point of being creative, and actually leveraging and calling upon particularly our local sphere of government, because they've got the infrastructure, because perhaps they would have the necessary office space or an amenity that we can share with them, that we get to a position where we are signing MOUs, so that we really just increase this foothold and this footprint, so that any young person does not feel that they are limited because they have to travel 100 kilometers to get to the nearest NYDA office. And yet, we've got local and then local municipality, we've got offices across all our communities. So those discussions are ongoing, but also with the understanding that we will not be able to reach all district offices, but we do want to just make as much of a marginal increase as possible.
Indeed. So the president has positioned the economic reconstruction and recovery plan as the key policy instrument that will be used to bring about transformation and to transition the country into a better place, better employment opportunities, growing the economy, inclusive growth. Obviously, we are anticipating that young people must be benefiting from the growth and from the economic reconstruction and recovery plan. What plans do you have in place to ensure that in the implementation of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, that young people are not left behind and that they benefit as they should, given that they are, of course, mostly affected by unemployment at the current point in time?
Yeah. So definitely, one of our core mandates speaks to the ability or us being able to ensure that we serve as a lobby group or lobby entity on behalf of young people. So we are positioned, we've got access to, the various departments across government. So where we are positioned, wherever there are monies appropriated for those respective departments, ours is to ensure that, for instance, if small business has X amount of money for the reconstruction and recovery plan, that, we make it a point that as a standing, government has a set policy on a 30% set aside for youth, women and persons with disability, and that those policy directives find expression in tangible results, and that it's not just rhetoric where we speak about issues of young people accessing such opportunities, but it becomes a tangible and a concrete plan of action wherein the department can also account to us and say, okay, out of this amount of money that was given, we have been able to assist X amount of young people, X amount of women, X amount of persons with disability. I think it's ultimately, when we speak about an impact-driven agency, that really becomes important, because we don't just want to do things for the sake of, malicious compliance and just a box-ticking exercise. But at the end of our tenure, we need to ensure that we have we've made an impact that has ultimately changed, the material conditions that young people find themselves in.
So you're talking about an impact-driven agency that will play its lobbying role, but also there's an oversight component that you are speaking to. And we know that in terms of youth issues, it is not only one department that is seized with the responsibility to empower young people. So can we then expect that the NYDA will then be able to across all the various departments at a national level and at a provincial level as well and at a district level, be able to find a way, to create these social compacts, but importantly hold government accountable for key policy, the implementation of key priorities that must benefit young people?
Definitely. And it's only through, our strategic partnerships and strategic engagements with those in power where we will be able to have such discussions. For instance, I was quite pleased, I was having tracked some of the SONA debates from yesterday. Two youngish MPs really spoke to just some of our core mandates. The one was, Honorable Mananiso, who made reference to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme and imploring, young people to take up these opportunities, and also imploring the president to ensure that the necessary resources are allocated to NSFAS so that young and deserving individuals are able to gain access to education. But another MP was Honorable Tebogo Letsie, who really spoke about, just some of the work that we're doing, and in fact, imploring the president to look into ensuring that the agency is adequately funded and adequately capacitated to be able to carry out our mandate. So it's obviously through those engagements, but obviously not limiting it to that, right? But we also need to get to a point where we engage, the executive arm or the executive sphere of government, which is the departments, as they are the ones that will implement some of these prerogatives or priorities. So it is through those strategic and ongoing engagements with departments, with our various stakeholders. But also a key point that the president made mention of was this idea that the reality is that government cannot employ every individual in this country. And the stats do reflect that about 80% of people are employed in the private sector, right? So ours is not to just lean entirely on government, but to also call upon private sector to really come on board and ensure that, where there are opportunities or where there's investment, that young people are able to find expression. So government is just there to create that conducive environment, but ultimately, we want to also call upon, your private sector to really come on board and assist us insofar as, youth development in this country is concerned.
Wonderful. You make a number of very important undertakings, Chairperson of the NYDA, and I just want to quickly run through a few of them. And I think obviously there will be an opportunity for you again to come and speak to the nation, to speak to young people across the country, probably 6 months from now. You talk about, you make a commitment to crisscross the country, to hear from young people what their issues are and to hear what kind of interventions you can put in place. Secondly, you talk about the NYDA functioning as an impact-driven agency for young people. You also spoke about the oversight-driven aspect of your work as well, where you will hold the executive to account. You talk about social compact as well, creating strategic relationship and partnerships. And then, of course, importantly, it is about making sure that there is implementation and that the deliverables that are recorded that they are effectively communicated to young people. I want to thank you so much, Ms. Luata, and I wish you the best, all the best for your term in office. There's a lot before you. You come into this position at a very challenging time in our history when the world and the country is facing the challenge and the onslaught of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I want to wish you all the best and thank you very much for making the time to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. That was Ms. Asanda Luaka, the chairperson, newly elected, the newly appointed chairperson of the NYDA, who shared her vision and what we can expect in relation to how the NYDA will be empowering young people in the current financial year. We are now linking to the role of committees. We will see you after the break.
Following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better. Parliament TV, channel 408 on DSTV.
A large part of Parliament's work in the lawmaking process happens in committees, and much of its oversight over the executive is also done through committees. As the people's representatives, members of the committees determine whether government departments are delivering on what they promised and whether they are spending the public money they receive in a responsible manner. As part of their oversight work, committees may also do visits where they find out directly from the people at ground level whether the government is delivering on its promises.
The role of committees is to oversee all the different activities that is taking place in terms of oversight, also the involvement of public participation, but essentially it is a delegated function from the National Assembly, where the Speaker, as the presiding officer, will say at the beginning of each term, we'll have the following committees. It is then enacted through the Rules Committee, and these committees has the primary task then to deal with anything that is referred by the Speaker to them and to report back to the House, because committees can't take decisions on their own. They must report back to the House. They oversee ultimately the executive and executive action.
Parliament consists of two houses, namely National Assembly and National Council of Provinces. The two houses conduct their work in plenary sessions and committee meetings. Working in committees allows Parliament to increase that work that can be done, ensure issues are debated in more detail than in plenary sessions. Committees also provide platform for public to present views directly to members of Parliament and try to influence the outcomes of Parliament's decisions as mandated by the Constitution. Different committees have different functions, which include monitoring and oversight of the work and the budgets of the national government departments, considering and amending bills, and may initiate bills, consideration of private members and provincial legislative proposals and special petitions, consideration of international treaties and agreements, examine specific areas of public life or matters of public interest, and taking care of domestic parliamentary issues. Committees generally are proportionately representative of the parties in Parliament, and they play a crucial role in the lawmaker process. National Assembly committees are called portfolio committees, while National Council of Provinces committees are called select committees. National Assembly committees shadow the work of the various national departments. Each committee has between 17 and 19 permanent members and a number of alternate members. In the National Council of Provinces, select committees shadow the work of the various national government departments and deal with bills. Each committee has between 13 and 15 full members. Because the NCOP has only 54 permanent members compared to the National Assembly's 400, the select committees shadow the work of more than one national government department. The difference between the committees in the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces is that because there are fewer members in the National Council of Provinces, committees and committee membership is clustered. One committee can easily oversee 5 to 6 departments. In the National Assembly, there is a committee for each department. Committees are not created randomly. Portfolio committees are appointed from among the members of the National Assembly. Select committees are appointed from among the members of the National Council of Provinces. Each committee is headed by a chairperson, and each committee has a whip. The work of committees is not restricted to government. They may investigate any matter of public interest which falls within their area of their responsibility.
It is possible for a member of Parliament to serve in more than one committee, especially the opposition parties. Smaller parties find it very difficult to be able to be in all committee meetings because they don't have permanent seats in all the committees. So you will find that a member of the opposition from a smaller party will easily serve on 4 or 5 different committees at the same time, and they must manage their time correctly so that they decide which priorities are there that they want to pursue. So they can serve on any committee that they want to, they can go wherever they want to, but ultimately it is the permanent or full-time members of the committee that will make the final decision in that committee and will have voting rights.
like in the National Council of Provinces, because Parliament it's the two houses. In the National Council of Provinces, you have a member that will be belonging to more than two committees, because the role of the National Council of Provinces is totally different to the National Assembly. Even if, like in my case, I'm a House chairperson in charge of committees, oversight, and intergovernmental relations, IGR. Over and above that responsibility, I'm also a member of some different committees.
A unique characteristic of parliamentary committees is that even though there are permanent committee members, committee meetings are open to all members of parliament. So, they may attend whichever meeting they want to, even if they are not permanent or full-time members of that committee. It is the responsibility of the chief whips of different political parties to decide which members are best suited to serve on specific committees. Committees have become the norm in parliamentary systems across the world because it's challenging for the entire collective of parliamentarians to sit together to work through the business of a specific department.
That is why when we start a term, we'll always make sure that we go through CV of all members of parliament. And that is assisting the allocation of members to different committees. They'll be subjected to a vigorous induction program so that you make them to understand what is expected of them, what will be happening in different committees, what is it to be a member of parliament.
Over and above portfolio and select committees, there are other types of committees that serve different functions. These include internal committees, which are committees consisting of senior members that deal with matters affecting the smooth running of Parliament. Such committees are Rules and Sub-Rule Committees, which deals with the House rules, the budget of the House, support for the members, internal arrangements and powers and privilege of members, Program Committees, which plans the work of the Houses, and the Committee of Chairpersons, which makes recommendations on the functioning of the committees and other forums. Private Members' Legislative Proposals and Special Petitions Committee considers draft bills submitted by individual members of the Houses of Parliament and public petitions submitted through a member of the National Assembly or provincial legislatures. Standing committees have a broader mandate and transverse different government departments. These include Standing Committee on Finance, Standing Committee of Appropriations, Standing Committee on Auditor General, and Standing Committee of Public Accounts, among others. Ad hoc committees are put together for a specific purpose and for a specific time frame. When the task is complete, the committee is dissolved. One such committee is Ad hoc Committee on Legislation amending Section 25 of the Constitution. And finally, Joint Committees. These comprise of members from both houses. The National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces together appoint members of joint committees. The Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence and the Joint Standing Committee on Defense are statutory committees. This means that they are established either by the Constitution or by an Act of Parliament, as well as in terms of the rules of Parliament.
These different committees all have a responsibility to report back to the House. That is ultimately where the ultimate decisions are taken. And political parties themselves decide who they want to deploy to the different portfolio committees, select committees or ad hoc committees. So in a nutshell, ultimately it's the chief whip of each party who decide which member will serve on whatever portfolio committee that is there. And it can change at any minute. As soon as the political party decide they want to change the membership, then it is allowed. However, it is a good practice to allow members of parliament serving on a committee to get familiar with the issues so that they are better equipped to deal with the issues as it transfers from one parliament to another parliament.
The National Assembly's Standing Committee on Public Accounts, known as SCOPA, acts as Parliament's watchdog over the way taxpayers' money is spent by the executive. Every year, the Auditor General tables reports on the accounts and financial management of the various government departments and state institutions. Heads of these bodies are regularly called to account by this committee. The committee can recommend that the National Assembly takes corrective actions if necessary. Working in a committee increases the participation of members of parliament in discussions, and it enables members to develop expertise and in-depth knowledge of the committee's area of work. For the public, committees provide a forum for citizens to present their views directly to MPs, something that is not possible in a plenary sitting of Parliament. The committees play a very important role in the process of building democracy and involving the public in the processes and activities of Parliament.
The core business or core mandate of Parliament, it's oversight, it's public participation, it's lawmaking. And all these three things, they are happening at a committee level. And at committee level, that's where you'll have executive members accounting. That's where you'll have entities of government accounting. That's where you'll have any other relevant stakeholder or the public being invited to come and make their contribution. So for Parliament to function, you need committees. Without committees, you will never have an institution called Parliament.
Parliamentary committees have various functions. They monitor and oversee the work of national government departments and hold them accountable. Committees also oversee the accounts of national government departments and state institutions. Once different committees are constituted, they embark on strategic planning workshops to plan their work very broadly for a 5-year period to decide on the matters the committee will be focusing on. The committee will look at the type of legislation expected to come to Parliament, outstanding issues, and the legacy reports from the previous term of Parliament that should be considered and factored into the new term. The committee will also decide on how they want to conduct oversight, which areas of the country they are planning to visit, and which entities they want to focus on. The committee will then develop annual programs out of that 5-year program.
So the committee will have an annual program where they then will say, when we meet for the following year, for each term, these are the issues that we focus upon. And if and when legislation are received, the committee will amend their program to factor the lawmaking process into their program. What is the lawmaking process? A minister or a member can bring a bill to Parliament. Speaker refers it to the committee, and the committee will see how substantive this proposed legislation is. And based on that, they craft their programs. So it's easy for the member of the public to be able to follow, to see what is the committee currently doing and what are they going to do next, based on their quarterly programs as well as the annual programs that are there, which is aligned to their 5-year program.
According to Rule 167 of the National Assembly, for the purposes of performing its functions, committees may summon any person to appear before it to give evidence on oath or affirmation, or to produce documents, receive petitions, representations or submissions from interested persons or institutions, permit oral evidence on petitions, representations, submissions, and any other matter before the committee, conduct public hearings, determine its own working arrangements, meet at a venue determined by it, which may be a venue beyond the seat of Parliament, meet on any and at any time, and may exercise any other powers assigned to it by the Constitution, legislation, and other provisions of the rules of resolutions of the Assembly.
Very specific powers, very wide powers that committees have. It's captured in Rule 167. That Rule 167 basically says committees decide on their own programs. Committees decide who they want to call to Parliament, when they want to call to Parliament. They decide where they want to go in the country. So they have very, very broad and wide-ranging powers. They are properly, in terms of the rules, empowered to execute their responsibility. And it is ultimately the chairperson with the committee. Members themselves decide how they want to exercise those powers.
In terms of ongoing function, committees have the opportunity to meet once a week for 2 to 4 hours. Members of Parliament are expected to attend and participate in committee meetings because records of attendance are produced. These are forwarded to the different political parties for parties to ensure that their members are fulfilling their obligations. It's also important for members of parliament to attend committee meetings because they may be asked by their constituents to comment on matters pertaining to the committee. It's also a requirement for members to be dedicated in terms of the lawmaking process and to bring the views of the public and the views of their political parties to those different committees. There is much preparation that goes into committee work. Members receive documents ahead of their meetings to familiarize themselves with the issues, organizations, or speakers presenting at the committee meetings. It is also important for members to be familiar with the manifestos of their various political parties. This preparation is above and beyond the hours spent conducting the business of Parliament.
So committees can make a member of executive to come to a committee to account. A committee can make a member of executive to review a decision that has been taken out of an engagement and an informed situation out of public participation. So committees has got serious powers. That is why we always term them as engine of Parliament.
Committees have to report to the plenary group that appointed them, and the plenary group must ratify certain decisions they make. If a committee reports on a matter and makes certain recommendations, that report will be debated in a full sitting or plenary to give other members of the House an opportunity to engage with the content of the report. Once the report has been debated, the House decides whether to adopt the committee's recommendations. The House may also decide only to note the report, or it may refer the report back to the committee with an instruction to do further work.
They report to the National Assembly or to the National Council of Provinces to say, this is what we have done. We put the report in front of you and you must decide. At that point, the House can decide to send a report back and say, you haven't done your work properly. Look into the following areas. And then it goes back to the committee, and the committee will then look at what the House have said and then come back and report back to the House.
The committees are accountable to both the public, because the public will always give us a feedback whether we're doing right or wrong. But over and above that, you can have these very same committees going to plenary, presenting their report, exchanging some notes, asking questions to executive, debating issues, exposing issues that are affecting our people, bringing members of executive to come to respond to questions.
Committees are and should be accessible to the public. Each committee has a chairperson and a committee secretary, and these individuals are responsible for receiving statements or inquiries from the public as well as answering those communications. Committee meetings are often open to the public, although they may be closed if there are very good reasons to do so.
Public participation is very, very important. So all meetings of committees are open to the public, except in specific instances where you, for instance, have the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. Their committee meetings are closed. It's in the joint rules. And you also have the Ethics Committee that meets behind closed doors. Any other committee may decide for only a specific item when there's a very sensitive issue that needs to be discussed there. They want to do it behind closed doors, but they cannot close a meeting for the entire duration. It's only to deliberate on that specific matter, and thereafter they must open it up. And they usually report to my office, and I inform the speaker when they close the meeting, whatever the reason was there, because it can be challenged outside.
All members of Parliament, they've got constituency offices. In their constituency offices, you have people that are permanently employed that are in those offices. From time to time, a member of a public can get to a constituency office, raise an issue, or petition Parliament using some members of Parliament to assist them to have a petition that will be attended by Parliament. Or going to that constituency office and say, these are the issues that are affecting us as a group or as individual, and that it's possible for members of Parliament to take those issues into consideration. And that is making our life to be much more easier, more focused, and at all times making sure that the very same people that are making it possible for us to be members of Parliament are correctly and rightfully so represented at this level.
Any member of the public who has access to internet can send an email to the chairperson of that committee or a member of that committee. Members of the public can come directly to the office of the chairperson to raise an issue which will be directed to the relevant committee or to the National Assembly Secretary. Communities in rural areas have the opportunity to use parliamentary constituency offices by going to a member of parliament directly and request them to raise issues for them in parliament in the form of a petition.
Before COVID, we encouraged committees to go out into our different areas and provinces, especially our communities who do not have access to ICT, because they have a story that they also want to tell, and we must hear those views. But fortunately, we also have, through PCS, community radio stations where members of the public can call in, where they can raise their different issues, and that is then channeled to the appropriate committee. The response to the member of the public in terms of questions or queries that they've had is always in writing, so that we have a record. You cannot just ignore something that a member of the public have said, or from civil society who have contributed or they ask questions of clarity. A vital organ of parliaments, we must continuously try to improve the work that committees are doing. And for them to execute their mandate, we need to move to a phase where they need to be assisted by professional staff. We must train the staff that is there, recruit professional staff, like the government is trying to do in the public service, so that the assistance that is given to the decision makers is of such a high standard that the correct decisions are taken. And committees must always be the eyes and the ears of the communities in holding the executive to account, irrespective who that member of the executive may be.
Parliamentary committees invest a lot of time, effort, and resources on their activities. They are the engine rooms of Parliament's work, driving legislature and oversight to ensure the needs of the South African citizens are continually met. The committees play a very important role in the process of building democracy and involving the public in the processes and activities of Parliament. While the public may not always know the hours and effort invested by committees to address the operations of organs of state and draft bills and laws, it is evident when the freedoms of citizens are advanced, the economy grows, and the Constitution is upheld as we continue to strive to build a society that is inclusive and prosperous for all. Parliament, following up on our commitments to the people, making your future work better.
Good afternoon and welcome to Parliament TV, DSTV Channel 408. We are still coming live to you from the Cape Town City Hall, from where we will be bringing you the resumption of the debates on the State of the Nation address. We started with the debates yesterday where different political parties gave their different views on the president. Citizens of South Africa, we are coming back to you live, and now as we are sitting here in the studio, we're just going to go and recap on what really happened yesterday during the State of the Nation address.
Well, the debate started very well. It was a heated debate, smooth, and we had the leader of the opposition of the Democratic Alliance, welcoming the president's announcement that the government was not there to create jobs, but rather that was the responsibility of the private sector. But the government's responsibility was to make the environment conducive for the private sector to invest. Something that he compared to a DA manifesto, as he indicated, that is one of the key policy priorities of the Democratic Alliances, indicating that the only difference between the two political parties was on the implementation. But that was Mr. Gungubele responded to that, indicating that the only difference that he can see is on this implementation of these policies, a racial difference, even saying if you want to see that, go to a township such as Guguletu and Philippi, and you will see that racial difference in the implementation of the key policies. And also, Sibu, just in close, and also Honorable Malema asking the President to withdraw that statement, indicating that it doesn't bring hope to young South Africans, but we wait to hear how the President is going to respond to that tomorrow.
Indeed. I think it's also important to start a little bit backwards, to re-emphasize what the priorities are that the President indicated will be the focus for driving or transitioning the country into a space where there's jobs are created, where there's social relief for the poor, to obviously combat issues of hunger, and that is that the President obviously reiterated the fact that the economic reconstruction and recovery plan remains as the policy construct that will be used as the instrument to transition the country into better conditions. And of course, as we know, the President also still said that first priority, as was announced in the 2021 State of the Nation address, is to defeat the coronavirus, and of course with its varied manifestations and its negative impact on the economy. Secondly, is to accelerate economic recovery. Thirdly, is to implement economic reforms to create sustainable jobs and to drive inclusive growth. And the fourth one, of course, is to fight corruption. And of course, the issue of energy generation also came out quite strongly as one of the enabling instruments to ensure that we create a conducive environment for business to thrive. But again, the President has reiterated that we are on a policy trajectory where we can see that the MTSF is still the guiding document based on the electoral mandate of the country. We're still on the same policy trajectory, and when it comes to issues of whether the President or whether government is there to create a conducive environment, there was an issue that was raised around whether the state is intervening in the economy to make sure that people who are unemployed do have access to tangible opportunities. And the response from most of the African National Congress speakers who participated in the debate is that yes, it is the state's responsibility to create a conducive environment. And of course, we know in terms of the jobs that have been created, there are the public employment opportunities that come through public works, that come through various projects that are being rolled out across the country. But secondly, we also know that the President has been convening these investment summits. And those investment summits are they are a clear indication of the state intervening. And these activities of creating the social compact with the private sector, with big business, with in order to get foreign direct investment, we can see that indeed the state has actually been intervening, has been in getting itself involved. But of course, we know we also have to think about the fact that we are dealing with inherited structural arrangements across the country. The structural features of poverty are still based on what we have, inherited prior to our democratic dispensation. But clearly, a commitment and a clear confirmation that yes, government will create conducive environment. It doesn't mean that government must be the only entity that will be seized with the responsibility. All partners must come on board and play their part to create jobs and take the country forward in terms of implementing the priorities that have been announced by the President in his 2022 State of the Nation address.
I think as well, when you also listen to the State of the Nation address, you actually see the systems that have actually been put in place to ensure that South Africa is able to invest, to invite investors. Because you look at the e-visa system, because that e-visa system, it actually allows the process of application, whether for work visas or visiting South Africa, being a tourist, to quicken the process than having the delays. So if we are having these systems in place, it means that the agency has been noted that if we do not keep up with the digital or modernization of doing things, we are going to be lagging behind, because that way we will ensure that people with skills from other countries countries, they come and visit South Africa, and then as well those who are looking for job opportunities, they can easily access those job opportunities. But it was also interesting listening to Honorable Holomisa when he said conferences and summits really do not assist us at this moment. But also you look at the moment when he said that, you actually look at the president's speech to actually note that the plans are no longer about a year plan. But when he was talking about the Lanseria city, he said it's going to take about 5 years. Maybe it's also we're not used to long-term programs that are supposed to take the country forward. But it was also interesting that under the IFP leadership, Mangosuthu Buthelezi, Honorable Mangosuthu Buthelezi, he highlighted that he's concerned that last year the dates, the time frames were not given when the president was highlighting all of this. But suddenly, even on student accommodation, he's saying that that will happen over the next 10 years. But it depends on the listener whether you see it as being a progressive to say that now we've got the time frames. It's no longer plans in vacuum, but at least we know as citizens or you at home that now at least it's going to take 5 years, it's going to take years to achieve some of the plans that the president has put in place.
Valerie, that as much as the general mentioned that he also proposed an economic indaba, which I'm not sure how then is it going to be different from the summit that he raised concerns, the summit and conferences that he raised concerns about, except maybe that he said this economic indaba needs to come up with resolutions, those resolutions that will then be ratified by Parliament. So we wait to hear how the President is going to respond on that one. But also with Mr. Holomisa also asking the President when government will start recovering money that was stolen through corruption from the Public Investment Corporation, So we wait to hear the President responding to that tomorrow. However, one of the other debates, something that interested me a lot, Sibu, was job applications. We kind of like saw people say availing themselves for cabinet positions, with Ms. Mazone also passing a vote of no confidence on members of cabinet citing incompetence, which was also raised by Mr.
Those vacuums would then inadvertently, vacancies would create then space for those who feel that they have the capacity.
It was made clear that if they would like to sit on those vacancies, the first thing that they need to do is to win the elections. Just like Honorable Malema, who was then calling for Minister Begicele to be relieved of his duties. Even suggesting where he should be deployed, something which Mr. Begicele reminded him that was the responsibility of the president, and if he wants to do that, he must win, have his own cabinet, and then he can then make those chop and changes. It even led to an extent where Honorable Malema said, we might just want to go outside and say those things to me where you are not protected by the powers and privileges. But we wait to see, because Minister Cele indicated that he will provide a response to what Mr. Malema was saying on Friday, when he's releasing the crime statistics.
Indeed.
I think it was also, sorry, Sibulela, I think also what was pleasing as well from listening to the Minister of Finance is a progress that they've made in order to ensure that 196 GBV accused people were actually caught and were given 272 life sentences for sexual crimes or gender-based crimes that they had committed. And also we know that the DNA system has not been working that very well. Hence, most of the criminals could not go to court because the evidence was not there. So I think for us as South Africans, especially women, and also those men who are fighting to make sure that women live in a safe community, would be pleased that even in KZN, the DNA processes are already in place. It's no longer taking months and months for evidence to be tabled before the courts.
Absolutely, and the issue of gender-based violence, as we know, has been a key priority for the Sixth Administration and for Parliament as well, and the legislative sector as a whole. We've seen, obviously, the review of the 1994 Women's Charter for Effective Equality, where the issue of gender-based violence actually featured quite prominently. Over and above the implementation, oversight over the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, we know that Parliament is looking at a wide-ranging, obviously in relation to how all of the articles that are contained in the Charter, which really says that women are not just about, if you want to empower women, it is not just about addressing the issue of gender-based violence. You need to think about women's education, access to education. Women also raised issues around access to land, economic opportunities, the labor environment, and so forth. So there's this. Parliament is basically beginning to position a new narrative, and that is look at women as more than just victims of gender-based violence, look at women as equals in society. And if you really want to empower women, then you need to have a holistic approach that looks at all the needs of women so that women can have an opportunity to be able to participate as equal citizens in this country. So for me, I think that that's one commendable thing, because the one aspect, obviously we know that the executive is doing quite a lot of work as well, obviously through the leadership of the Ministry for Women in ensuring that gender mainstreaming, that the mainstreaming process takes place across the departments, but also Parliament is playing a critical role in ensuring that it holds the executive to account, but also with a three-sphere approach to ensure that the three spheres work cooperatively together to ensure that they implement not only the provisions or the commitments as contained in the NSP for gender-based violence and femicide, but also the 2021 Women's Charter for Effective Equality.
And also, Sebo, the President spoke about strengthening the security cluster in his State of the Nation address, something that Minister Cele emphasized on, to say that the cluster needs to be strengthened,
Absolutely.
Because currently there's concerns of political killings in KZN, which are his department's national priority. He further also raised a concern that that trend is now slowly moving into the Eastern Cape and Mpumalanga provinces that we have not heard such reports of political killings as we've been with KwaZulu-Natal. And just to move from there, Sibu, the Minister of Home Affairs also welcoming the announcement by the President of the employment of about 10,000 young people through the presidential employment stimulus, to assist with the digitization of Home Affairs records, something that I think is also going to assist the Department of Home Affairs, which in any way has not been doing that bad. The improvements are there. The waiting periods now for your ID have been reduced to almost a week, so there are improvements that are happening within the Home Affairs Department, but I think also this digitization will make things even more easier. Anyway, it's high time that also like the other relevant departments follow suit, because we are in the fourth industrial revolution. After all, we are trying to save trees and doing away with paper. So yeah, that was welcomed by the Minister of Home Affairs.
Absolutely. So when we go back to the issue of safety, if we go back to the issue of safety of women, there's also a view based on the expert report backs that we've seen based on the analysis that has been done by the HSRC and a number of other independent institutions, there's an indication that government is actually doing very well when it comes to responding to the issue of gender-based violence and femicide with the systems that are put in place. But in order for us to be able to record more progress in a sustained and ongoing way, Parliament needs to ensure that it continues to keep the issue of gender-based violence and femicide at the top of the agenda, and as I've earlier indicated as well, is to ensure that you look at all aspects of women empowerment, not only the issue of gender-based violence, but also the economic empowerment of women, women's access to land, and various other empowerment-related issues.
And speaking on safety as well around women, the gender-based violence, we also look at the safety of the women.
Yes.
Water.
Absolutely.
Water is extremely critical. It's life. But when you drive around the Cape Town, we drive around South Africa, you see how filthy our rivers are. You see how the streams are so polluted with all kinds of rubble. So it was also critical to get that information from the president that there is a review now of water inspectors. I think I've lost the term now, but we are going to have citizens or people or a team that is now going to come back to assess the quality of the water that the communities are using. So that we know that Cape Town, in terms of the blue drop, the water is good, but you move to communities like Kailicha, you go to other places, you find that the water is not a good state for drinking, for washing, even for animals. So you find that all these sicknesses are happening in communities. But really, I think there is really an effort to ensure that even environment is safe for everybody, especially the water, which is a commodity. Because you find in other communities, like in rural places, you find that people are buying water. And you wonder what has been happening over the last 20 years if citizens are made to buy water. So if I don't have money, how am I going to survive to get that water? So this program, resuscitating the water quality assessors, it is going to bring a lot of change.
So what is also important to just to latch on to what the issue of water is an issue that also came up during the review of the Women's Charter. It is the issue of women's access to services, and the fact that services are not rendered, or like service delivery, it's not structured in a manner that takes into consideration the needs of women. And water also came up as an issue. You know, the fact that women don't have access to water, clean water. Women are obviously, especially women in the rural areas, they're the ones who are responsible for, doing the laundry, making sure that they cook, they use water to cook, and for various other things. So the recommendation as well, which is also contained in the 2021 Women's Charter for Accelerated Development, it's the need to ensure that service delivery is also structured in a gendered manner, so that you can be able to ensure that even while you provide water and sanitation, make sure that you take consideration of the female-headed households, that you take consideration of what women's needs are in a particular district and locality, and structure service delivery in a manner that speaks to women's needs as well.
And Sebulelo, just to add on this water concern, as someone that comes from the rural areas of the Eastern Cape, I have a first-hand experience of water shortages, because I know that when I go home to Pain in Amtata, that I have to ensure that before I arrive in the house, I need to have enough water. So to those who have just joined us, you are still watching the live broadcast of Parliamentary on DSTV channel 408. This is a build-up to the second day of the debate on the State of the Nation address, and the President is expected to respond tomorrow. Let's have a look on this clip that the President made comments on the small, micro, medium enterprises.
This This year we are undertaking far-reaching measures to unleash the potential of small businesses, micro businesses, and informal businesses. These are the businesses that create the most jobs and provide the most opportunities for poor people to earn a living. We have started discussions with social partners as part of the social compact to process a number of measures, and some of those will be how we enable small and medium enterprises to operate without too many strictures on areas such as the labor market regulations for smaller businesses to enable them to hire more people while continuing to protect the rights of working people. A new redesigned loan scheme is being introduced to enable small businesses to bounce back from the pandemic and the civic unrest that we went through. This new bounce back scheme incorporates lessons from the previous loan guarantee scheme, which did not work as well as I had anticipated when we launched it, if you recall, under the stimulus program that we launched, which was quite unprecedented in the history of our country. This new and redesigned loan scheme, which will serve small businesses, will involve in development finance institutions and non-bank SME providers in offering finance, expand the types of financing available, and adjust eligibility criteria to encourage greater uptake. The National Treasury is working with industry stakeholders to finalize the scheme, and the Minister of Finance will provide details soon. We are reviewing the Business Act alongside a broader review of legislation that affects small and medium enterprises to reduce the regulatory burden on informal businesses. We found that there are too many regulations in our economy and our country that are unduly complicated, costly, and difficult to comply with. Now, this prevents companies from growing and creating jobs. I will forever remember the imagery of a woman who was selling these dog beds, which she had sewn up herself. She was on the side of the road selling, and the Metro Police accosted her and went on to try and arrest her. And in fact, arrested her, put her in the back of a van, police van. And her crime was, they said, she did not have a permit to sell a product which was going to put food on the table for her children. Now that, for me, is the regulatory strictures that we have introduced in our economy gone completely wild. Because what we need to be doing is to support that lady to sell products and support her family. Now we are therefore working to improve the business environment for companies of all sizes through a dedicated capacity in the presidency to reduce red tape. If we are to make progress in cutting unnecessary bureaucratic delays for businesses, we need dedicated capacity with the means to make changes.
Good afternoon once again. We are still coming to you live from the City Hall. We are now joined by the Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mama Sylvia Lucas. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Valerie, and good afternoon to the viewers.
How was your experience of the SONA on Thursday last week?
I think, you remember we had an interview pre-SONA?
Yes.
and I told you about the expectations of the people. I should say that about almost 80% of the areas that I really expected, or the people really expected the president to speak about, that is now those that I got in touch with when I was going around. Yeah. And the president responded to most of that issues. We know it is currently in the public domain. It is the issues that people are worried about, that they are thinking about. Issues like water, like the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the issues of how do we respond to poverty and to unemployment, as well as the issue of students. It was some of the issues that people really came to us and said that we want the president to give us decisively solutions for this kind of challenges that we are experiencing as the people. I am very satisfied that the president is in touch with what the people of South Africa want to hear and what want to be resolved.
Coming back to what the president delivered in his speech yesterday, or on last week on Thursday, the president positioned the economic reconstructive and recovery plan as a strategy, or as a microeconomic strategy, to make sure that our economy is going where it is expected. As Parliament, how is Parliament going to ensure that women do benefit when the economic reconstruction and recovery plan is implemented?
I think I need to repeat the fact that in our process of reviewing the Women's Charter, and even if you look at the articles, when we came back and we redraft the Women's Charter for Accelerated Development of 2021, one of the issues that came through very strong was the issues of the economy and its impact on women. So I like the fact that even if you have listened to the input the insight that you have just played, the president's focus on informal trading, because it is also our experience that the majority of informal traders are women. They are the ones that are selling magwinya at the school gate. They are the ones that are selling vegetables at the street corner. They are the ones that are going around making sure that they just, in a very, very informal way, provide for their children. So the issue of the restrictive legislation or the legislative framework that is existing, that is in actual fact making it very difficult for informal traders to even graduate into micro or medium enterprises. That is the kind of issues that the president so eloquently and directly addressed. And that is what we really want to see, because currently it is very rare that you will find women that is established in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of being fully fledged businesses. I don't want even to speak about millionaires. We are not even there really yet, besides the few that are there, a very, very selected few that are there. So what I'm saying is that if we really want our economy to recover, we need to make sure that the ease of doing business is the thing that is being addressed.
Ma'am, it's quite true that women are actually part of the economy.
Yes.
You see, even if you walk around the Grand Parade, who are the people who are responsible for these
what
small
they call
businesses?
Vendors. Who are the vendors?
Exactly. But having said that, the president also highlighted the issue of critical skills. An assessment was done in 2014, and now we are in 2022. In your speech, you alluded to the fact that we need a capable state to ensure that for the success of the ERRP, we then have a capable state where people have skills to ensure that when implementation comes, the programs and the policies that have been alluded to, they become implementable. Then coming now to the NCOP, or as Parliament or members of Parliament and in the National Assembly as well as in the NCOP, how are you going to ensure that Parliament conducts proper or quality oversight?
First of all, I think we are saying we need critical skills. But have we ever done a proper skills audit up to all levels? I think the census will also be able to assist in that regard. But I think what we need first and foremost is a proper skills audit so that you at least know what you have before you speak about what you don't have. Because it may happen that you find that we do have people that with a little bit of reskilling, you can be able to have the acquired skills. But with a little bit of effort, you can be able to put people into areas where they will be able to enhance the skills that they already exist. The problem, there is one issue, and I think we need to speak about it because it becomes the elephant in the room. In many instances, you find that the immigrants, or illegal or legal, coming in and occupying unskilled, semi-skilled and lower skilled jobs. I think that is the first area where you need to protect your people. Because how do you get skills? By getting into the workplace and developing more skills. By getting into training and developing more skills. Because we have got a bulk of young people that is neither in education or employment or in training. But we have got the capacity. You know, I said in my speech yesterday, South Africa is not a country that is poor on ideas and innovations. There is a lot of innovative thinking individuals in our society. There is a lot of people that do have the necessary skills, but they don't have the necessary documentation that can take them into a semi-skilled or a skilled employment. And that is the kind of effort. And I think today the Minister of Higher Education is going to participate in the debate. I am really looking forward to hear what he is going to say about that issue. Because we also raised the issue, I don't know whether you remember, of the exit strategy. So that we don't sit with a bulk of graduates that doesn't have employment, but that also doesn't have the means to become innovative or to become entrepreneurs. So that is, I mean, if you have a comprehensive response to the issue of skills, to the issue of entrepreneurship, but also to the issue of making sure that we have a qualified cadre of young people that have studied into needed skills within the economy, then I think it will assist you.
Deputy Chair, I just want to latch on the very point that you made around the immigrants coming to the country, taking certain jobs. As I was walking down yesterday to the City Hall, there was a gentleman that was on a loud hailer stating that the immigrants must leave the country because they are taking our jobs. This conversation, it's becoming very popular. You can even see on social medias as well. So, ma'am, as you have alluded, what is Parliament going to address this issue?
First and foremost, we must condemn how people out there is in a very populistic way dealing with that issue. We need, I'm saying it again, to have a legislative framework, and we also need to have the necessary person power to make sure we enforce our regulations so that regulations will actually avoid conflict. Because South Africa is part of Africa, we are part of the globe. So it is unavoidable that people will come to South Africa. But if our regulatory framework is in place, we will be able to say this jobs is actually reserved for South Africans in whatever field. So if we have 10 vacancies, at least of the 10 vacancies, 3 people can be legal immigrants that are having the necessary skills. But the 7 must be South Africans. And if they are semi-skilled, we must make sure that we skill them into that area. Because the problem is that people are becoming what we call reactionary. They are totally reactionary with regards to the issues around the issue of immigrants. And that is not the way how we as the ANC government should be dealing with something like that. But also as Parliament, we need to make sure that we have proper oversight and also make proper recommendations with regards to the regulatory and the legislative framework that should exist to avoid people from taking the law into their own hands and beginning to do actions that will actually be seen as xenophobic. So that is very important. So Parliament have got a very important role to play.
Coming back to that role, ma'am, of oversight and the importance of the role Parliament has to play, you just again touched on the issue of oversight, because seemingly it's becoming the buzzword as what really needs to be happening. There's going to be an oversight conference that has been arranged by the presiding officers of Parliament sometime in March 2022. What role are members of Parliament expected to play during the summit or during this conference?
The issue is that in many instances, you will hear that particularly parliamentarians from other parties will stand there and say that the ruling party MPs are treating the executive with kid gloves. It is not really my experience, because I have observed that there is robust engagement in committees, and also we as the NCOP have got the ministerial briefings that we usually use to make sure that we get more information from ministers, from premiers, and from the organized local government. So what the role of MPs and MPL should be in a conference like that is to make sure that they share experiences and that they develop collectively develop best practices that will actually enhance our oversight and that will make sure that we have a responsive and accountable executive. But without us fighting one another, without us bringing out the worst in each other, but making sure that in a very cordial, because we can do robust oversight, but still be very cordial, still doing it in a way that will actually enhance respect for the legislator, because that is sometimes the problem, that the way we want to do oversight is doing more damage than actually reaching the kind of results that we want to actually achieve.
Deputy Chairperson, will this oversight conference be open to the public to attend virtually, or it will only be reserved for the members of Parliament?
I think, in my view, there is always limitations, yes, logistical limitations and so. But in my view, there are some civil society organizations that have really, throughout the years, proved that they have a genuine interest in making sure that the executive is being kept accountable. So although it is for members of Parliament, it will just pay off if we can also involve that kind of NGOs, CBOs, civil society organizations, those that are making sure that they, in a very constructive way, contribute to keeping the executive accountable. So I think some of the stakeholders should be from that sector.
That would be very interesting. Yes. I think also as staff, there are people that will be very keen to attend so that, yes, we understand what our institution is about. Yes. Ma'am, still speaking on oversight, there's going to be implementation on the outcomes on the 2021 Women's Charter. So how is then Parliament going to assist in ensuring that the findings and the decisions made on the Women's Charter become implementable?
One area that we want this to be implemented is at the provincial and at the local level. Now, with the district development model, it is actually giving us a forum, very coordinated, from where this resolutions or these recommendations can begin to be implemented. But also, I maintain, with regards to government, the Department of Women have got a very important role to play to make sure that there is monitoring and evaluation. In the same vein as Parliament will have oversight, but also there should be monitoring and evaluation, a collective one, to make sure that from the national government to the local government, we actually coordinate that implementation at the district development level. Because I think someone during January, when we were visiting rural areas, one of the deputy ministers explained how the district development model should work for our people. And I think if everyone has got a common understanding of that is what we want from the district development model, I think we will see that it will no longer be dreams for us. To see that we dream that one day a woman in South Africa will walk free and can walk into any door and be assisted and get the right assistance, the correct assistance, and also get access to whatever is available for our people in South Africa. Now, if that district development model can work the way I understand it, that it is supposed to be a forum where come together local government, traditional authorities, provincial government, as well as national government through the champions. And then now, for instance, in an area like Giyani, I'm speaking about Giyani because I was there, the issue is a road. Those people say we've got one access road, it is becoming extremely cumbersome, and I asked them, what do you propose? They say, if at all there is an area we can be assisted, it is connected to this province, if that province, us and the national government get together, we can develop a road that will then relieve the one access road that is into this area, because this area is about how many, almost 80 villages, and that is the one access road from the south into this area. Now, if at all, the two provinces, the district, the local municipality, and the Department of Roads can get together, and whatever resources there is, just pool that resources. Imagine how fast the implementation of that road can take place. That is in my head, and in my view, what is meant with the implementation at the district level and the coordination of all the different stakeholders at that level. Now, I would want Parliament to make sure that in our oversight, we not only do oversight and criticize, but also advise to make sure that this really works. It becomes effective. And if it can become effective, I am sure we will not only save, but we will also be able to pool resources. And in resources, I'm not speaking about money only, but also the human resources, the available resources. Because you can imagine, if it is in an area, for instance, I don't know who spoke about it, but I heard it from somewhere. Someone spoke to me and said, imagine coming together in our area where, it's someone that spoke where we grew up. And we've got a doctor from there, we've got a nurse from there, we've got an engineer from there. It's one of the oldest areas where we grew up. So there are a lot of educated people that are coming from that area. If all of us come together and do like they do in the Cuban model, in Cuba, if you are a hairdresser, for 1 or 2 days in the week, you must go in and do community service. You must do the hair of old people at old age homes and so on. If you are a doctor, you must volunteer your services for 1 or 2 days. And then also, if there is a problem, a challenge in the community experience, for instance, you find water pipes are breaking and so on, the municipality does not necessarily have the capacity in that they may have the human power, but they don't have the monetary resources. And we come together and we say, I am in a position to make and contribute 1,000 or 5,000, and I can mobilize 20 people and say, let's all of us contribute 5,000, and we address that issue in our area. If South Africans can, within this issue of speaking about social cohesion, social compacts and whatever, if South Africans can just change their mindset and begin to pool their resources together. And if you speak about resources, people understand money. I'm not speaking about money. I'm speaking about your ability. And you contribute your ability. It is different. South Africa will be a country that can get far.
You know, Deputy Chairperson, you kind of read my mind, because as I was sitting here while you were speaking about the women, the charter, the success of the charter that you had throughout the provinces, I'm sitting here thinking, who is mentoring the girl child to ensure that by the time they become women, they understand what being a girl child progressing into a woman. There is that sense that we might be leaving our girl children behind and then find them at a later stage when they are fully grown women. So what are the plans to ensure that we actually mentor and support the women, the young girls, or we grow with them into these programs that we call women's programs of Parliament?
There is women, there is girls, and there is boys. I really want to give other people an opportunity to come and sit in this chair. And can I advise you to invite the Deputy Minister of Social Development? That programs that they are having, we don't need more. Okay. We just need to get together and to support that programs from education, social development, and you name it. So that, because sometimes we too much want to groom our daughters into ladies. You must groom them into mention so that they become people for people. That is what you should do. But also the boys, because we are leaving them behind. I was like once with President Ramaphosa, we went to I don't know what to like call it, a seminar or a camp or what, but there was now the grade 11s and that from different schools, and President with Minister Ndabeni. So we were at that specific place. And the school selected boys and girls to make small inputs, like a speech, small inputs, just like that, at that event in front of President, ourselves, and we were a few. Who was the ones that could stand up confidently? It was the girl children. All the boys, when they start laughing, doing funny things. One or two of them really could stand there and do the speech. What I am saying is that although we are speaking about women, but we are mothers too. We are sisters too. So we need to make sure we must speak about our children. Not only girl children, not only boy children, we must speak about our children. And we must equip our children equally for the challenges of lives. You must equip them equally. And we must make sure in our programs we engender the thinking of our children, so when they grow up, they will be healthy young people. And when I speak about healthy, sound of mind, that is what I'm speaking about. Because in many instances, it is us that are putting the psychological burden on our children by giving them responsibilities that is not necessarily for them. But what we must learn them is that you have got rights, but you also have got responsibilities that go with that rights. And that is important.
I think, Deputy Chair, you have said it all, that there is a desire, there is an interest within the departments as well as Parliament to ensure that even our children are not left behind, to understand the daily happenings of life, the political life, because at the end of the day, it affects them. But viewers at home, that was our Deputy Speaker, Deputy Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mama Sylvia Lucas. Just before we go out, we are going to have this insert on the small, medium and micro businesses. Have a look at this.
Infrastructure is central to our economic reconstruction and recovery. Through innovative funding and improved technical capabilities, we have prioritized infrastructure projects to support economic growth and better livelihoods, especially in energy, roads, and water management. The Infrastructure Fund is at the center of this effort, with a 100 billion rand allocation now working with state entities to prepare pipeline projects with an investment value of approximately 96 billion in student accommodation, social housing, telecommunications, water and sanitation, and transport. Several catalytic projects to the value of 21 billion are expected to start construction this year. Of this, 2.6 billion is contributed by government and the balance is financed by the private sector and development funding institutions. Government will make an initial investment of 1.8 billion in bulk infrastructure, which will unlock 7 private sector projects to the value of 133 billion. For millions of South Africans in rural areas, roads and bridges provide access to markets, to employment opportunities, to families and social services. Yet many children still have to brave overflowing rivers to reach schools, and motorists have to battle impassable roads to reach the next town. One person was telling me that they now have to drive on the side of the road because many roads are so bad. We are therefore upscaling the Welisizwe Rural Bridges Program to deliver 95 bridges a year from the current 14. Our South African National Defence Force is the implementing agent of the Welisizwe program and has demonstrated the expertise of the SANDF engineers in bridge construction. Earlier this week, I was in Takhalane village in Limpopo to launch a new road that is going to make a huge difference in the lives of neighboring communities. This road was constructed using block paving and other materials, which is a method that enables us to build durable roads faster and more cost effectively. I would like to see a situation where many of the roads that we have in our country, particularly in our township areas, in our rural areas, and in outlying areas, being paved, because paving is so much cheaper than using asphalt. The Rural Roads Program will use labor-intensive methods to construct or upgrade nearly 700 kilometers of rural road over the next few years. This social enterprise program includes access to roads in Limpopo, in the Eastern Cape, and to move from gravel to surface upgrades in the Free State, in Northwest, and capacity connectivity improvements in the Western Cape. Government has initiated the process of delivering the Umzimvubu water project. The project is made of a number of dams. The Ntabelanga Dam, the Lalini Dam, an irrigation infrastructure and hydroelectric plant, Ntabelanga water treatment works and bulk distribution infrastructure to reticulate to the neighboring communities. Now, the closing date for the first of the two-stage procurement process is scheduled to close later this year, with a preferred bidder likely to be announced later this year as well. Government is introducing an innovative social infrastructure delivery mechanism to address issues that afflict the delivery of school infrastructure. The mechanism will address the speed, the financing and funding, quality of delivery, mass employment and maintenance. We still need to build some 2,500 or so schools in our country, and using current budgetary methods or processes, it'll probably take us 75 years to close that gap. However, with the new innovative mechanisms for delivery and financing, we should be able to do it much sooner. The delivery mechanism will introduce a special purpose vehicle working with prominent DFIs and the private sector to deliver school education infrastructure, with government obviously continuing to finance the building of schools. This approach is being piloted in schools in the Northern Cape and in the Eastern Cape, and will soon move also to other provinces, Limpopo and many other provinces.